We're going to talk about something called Adobe Connect. How many people here have heard of Adobe Connect? Okay, so most, if not all of you. So Adobe Connect is our collaboration tool. And when I say it's our collaboration tool, I mean it allows you to do more than just what people think about when they think of web-based presentations. So I kind of want to do a walkthrough and give you a sense of what that is. The thing that people like about Connect is that it's a very flexible tool for doing the kinds of things that you want to do, in that you can set it up to be anything that you want. A floor wax, a dessert topping, a presentation tool, a collaboration tool, a lecture capture tool, a portal. And I'll show you what all of those things mean, because it basically, it boils down to how you configure it and what you do with it. So I've got this sort of a standard configuration here of Connect. What you're looking at is what I see as a presenter. I'm just going to show you what you would see if you were a participant, and I'll explain the difference. So right now the recording is silent, so I'm going to jump back in there. But this is what you see. Now, the reason that it changed, let me jump back to what I was. The reason that it changed is because there were pieces that the presenter uses to kind of run things behind the scenes that you don't want the participant to change. So I just wanted you to know that there's a difference there. But unlike a lot of other tools, having somebody be a participant or making them a presenter is not a process where you hand a baton and then they can only speak or whatever. We have this concept of the attendee list, which allows you, basically, you can promote anyone in the room to being a full-blown host or presenter if you want them to be, by literally clicking and dragging their name. Now, I can't do it this way here because I'm a host, but I can make myself seem like a participant, as you saw. And that's pretty handy, because that means that I can get a sense of what my audience is seeing. But I can go in the other direction, too. If somebody else is logged into the room, I can drag them up and make them a host, and they can speak or whatever. But beyond that, these rectangular areas that you see here are called pods. And Connect works through a series of pods, and each pod has a different type of functionality. So you've got some sort of usual suspects. There's a chat pod. So yes, we can chat. Pardon? Oh, good point. I thought I had. Oh, that's right, because I jumped in and out. Thanks for a reminder. So I've got a chat pod, and the chat pod works exactly as any IM tool might. You chat, and the people chat back and forth. And it's a good tool to use, especially when I'm starting a meeting out, because this is kind of my standard configuration for a meeting, although I might actually just have it look like this. So you can see that this is branded, so that it's branded for Case Western. I've got a camera, which I'll start. There I am. Hi, everybody. And if I want, I can pause the camera, so I can primp or pick my ears or whatever I need to do before the meeting starts. The attendee list is just a great way for people to kind of see what's going on, who else is in the room, so that they can chat with those people. It's possible also to chat privately with one another, so you can have that sort of side conversation. When it's time to actually begin moving from this into a presentation mode, then you simply bring back the share pod, and you can share a variety of different things through this share pod, including your screen, which is actually what I did for the lecture capture, and I'll talk to that a little bit later. Right now I'm sharing nothing, but the thing about Connect that makes it wonderful, the thing that I love about Connect, is that I can present material from any computer as long as that computer is connected to the internet. And being an internet tool, obviously it's going to be. The reason being that Connect doesn't just allow you to show off your desktop, but anytime you add content to Connect, it is added to the server and sits there as content that you can use over and over and over again. And so if my computer were hit by a meteor, or this young woman in the green shirt ran up, grabbed it and stole it and ran off, I could put any other computer in its place and continue to present, because this content is on the server. So it's taking a few moments to load in. Again, I'm on the guest network, and I'm thinking that I'm fighting with bandwidth for others. But here we go. So here, this is a PowerPoint slide, and it does what PowerPoint slides do. You've got your builds. I can walk through them. But not only can I present information to you, but at some point during this session, and this is where the flexibility starts to come into play, I can click this little sync button and say, now, review the slides, because in 10 minutes I'm going to come back and I'm going to quiz you. And the audience now has the ability to walk through the slides themselves and view them in an asynchronous mode, even during a live session. Now, what I can be doing over here, perhaps, is chatting, answering questions. But as I promised, I'm going to go ahead and come back in 10 minutes, and I'm going to ask you a quiz. Or I've got a quiz. So I'm going to hide this pod. I'm going to come over here to my pods menu. I've got my polls. I'm going to add a poll. The poll is going to say, what platform works with Connect? And I'm doing this because I forgot ahead of time to build this. I'm pretending I forgot ahead of time to build it. Say Android, Mac OS, iOS, Windows, all of the above. We'll open the poll up, and in that amount of time, I just created a poll that I can use. So I'm going to say, I'm going to title this thing, what platform? This particular poll now not only is a poll that I can open, so it's open, people could come in and they can vote, I can broadcast the results so we can all see, or I can not broadcast the results, and if I'm using this as an actual quiz, I can click on View Votes and I can see who voted what. This information is also stored on the server so that after the session I can pull that information and get a sense of who seems to be understanding it and who seems to maybe need a little bit of remediation. The flexibility that it offers is also, well, it combines with the fact that things are permanent, like content, to give me this ability. If I decide during a session that, you know what, I'm just not sure people are paying attention. Maybe I've been talking for 35 minutes, and the chat is gone, nobody's chatting. I've planned later on to open that poll, but I'm going to use it as a way to keep my audience leaning forward and participating. That poll, once I've created it, is always available to me until I delete it. So anything that I do, both to prepare ahead of time or on the fly, is something that Connect will remember and I can reuse at any point. So if you know, okay, it's 3:57, the class ends at 4, I just put this poll up and I realize, you know what, realistically people have probably left. That's probably not that unfair. So I'm going to say, okay, class, well, it's 3:58, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll come back next week and we'll do this, you know, we'll go back over this. Well, I'm probably going to want to just reiterate some of the information. So we'll bring back that SharePod. Just, you know, to give you a chance to kind of refresh yourself. And this is actually a fairly large PowerPoint file. There we go. So, you know, I'll turn the synchronization off and I'll say, okay, spend 5 minutes going over this, and then I'll go ahead and grab the pod, or the poll pod, and bring it back up and then do my quiz then. That kind of flexibility is afforded to me because Connect remembers what I was trying to do. Now, what I've shown you here is, for content that I can share, I've shown you a PowerPoint file. But let's talk about some other things that I can share. First off, on any content, turn the sync off, there we go. Actually, let me stop the sharing. Or with the content, I basically have 6 different types of content that I can pre-upload and share, which really affords me some wonderful flexibility. For example, I can share a PDF file. So I can turn anything into a PDF file, post it in, and treat it like a presentation. I can share a JPEG file. And try that again. share my content. I've got a JPEG file. Not sure why it's taken so long. I just wonder if... There we go. And it says it's uploading, but it's actually pulling it from the Connect server.
Do you want me to throw it in case one of this switch opens into about 10 gigs to our network?
Yeah, can we do that? Because I think probably I'm just sharing bandwidth with a lot of people right now. What we're going to do is I'm just going to switch to a network that's a little bit faster. I mean, frankly, on an open wireless network, I'm not connected via wire. The usability wasn't terrible, but as a demonstration in 30 minutes, I want to get through a lot of stuff, so that's why we're switching it. And that'll, once it knows that I'm connected, that should come right back. If not, I can jump right back in the room. It's just the system has to realize I'm connected. Okay?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just switching networks from him so he's got more bandwidth.
There we go. And Connect is actually smart enough to be good to that. So there's a big JPEG file. Why do I use a big JPEG file? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to hide the camera pod, and I'm going to move this over into that area because I want to leave you with a sense of some best practices, but I just want to kind of get through some of the basics here first. Okay, so there's a JPEG file. I can share an FLV movie file. So if I want to put a movie in there and play it, I can do that. Like, for example, that brain set of slides that I made. I can share an MP3 file. So if I want to play a little music, maybe a little jazz to show those young hip kids how old I really am, I can throw that up in a pod. I can also, in a pod, put any Flash SWF file. And I'll show you at the end where you can get some interesting Flash SWF files that allow you to do some things like create games that you can play inside Connect. But all of that is nice. I've got these pods that I can share, or I've got these file types that I can share. But at some point, you're going to want to say, how do I share a MATLAB file? Or how do I share an AutoCAD file? And yes, I can convert it to PDF and show it, but no, I want the full functionality to be there. And the answer is you can always punt and share your screen. Now, it's not ideal to share your screen, and I want to be very clear about this. It takes about 10 times the amount of preparation to prepare for an online class than you might expect for an in-person class. Why? Because you need to have your stuff together, and if you put your stuff together and get it in the room, then you have the flexibility of doing some of this stuff in an ad hoc way that I've shown you. Oops, I want to show off that PowerPoint slide. Well, if you don't have your stuff together and you do a share my screen and then you go find the PowerPoint file and then you open the file, by the time you get the file open and you are presenting it, your audience is checking their email. They're on Facebook. Or they're gone. Because aside from that polling technique that I showed you, there really isn't a way to know if they're there. So share my screen is great. It works. I use it all the time when I'm doing Photoshop classes and things like that. I use it all the time. But to the extent that you can prepare ahead of time and put your assets into the room, and by the way, putting your assets into the room means share a document, browse my computer, click select, and then it uploads. And this is another reason you want to do this ahead of time. This is a single page PDF. Imagine if this were a 10 megabyte PDF. It would take a little while to upload. Again, your audience is on Facebook. So, but you can do this. And once you share it and put it in the room like this, it now becomes a document that's available to you from that point onward. I'm going to cancel that upload because I want to jump back into one of these documents. And I want to also talk about what you can do once you have them shared that's harder to do with a screen share. So I've got this file here. It's a synchronized file now, or I will synchronize it. I'm going to click on Draw. And what Draw does is it allows me to essentially act like I have a whiteboard, and whiteboard on top of PDF files, movie files, PowerPoint files, or any of these things. Once I put the drawing markup on there, and I stop the sharing, and then I share that again, do recently shared. Those markups will stay in place. So last Monday's lecture had a bunch of markups. Want to get back to that? I'm not going to have to try and remember where I was and what I was doing. They're there, and there they are. Actually, let me get through the builds, and you'll see that they don't live on all the slides. They live actually on the slide that you put them on. So it's also the case, though, that if I want to, I can share just a plain old whiteboard. So if I don't have any content at all, I can create them. And these are permanent. These are remembered. And all I need to do to remember them is name them. So I'm going to call this formula. Hide this. And then under pods, share. Formula, become available. So the share pod really is sort of the central thing with which I share information. But there are a couple of other pods that I want to point out. And then I want to start sharing with you some of the best practices for using this tool. So you've seen the camera and voice. You've seen the chat. Let's say that I do want to do an AutoCAD class, and eventually I'll want you to have the AutoCAD file. Well, I'm not going to put it in a share pod because I'd have to convert it to PDF, blah, blah, blah. What I'm going to do is upload the file. And because I've already uploaded, we'll say, this video file. Oh, here we go. Here's the case background image. I'm going to click OK. That file is now something that you can download right from this pod. So I might say, OK, now go ahead and grab the AutoCAD file. Next week, I'll expect you to do X, Y, Z with that file. If you want to see what I'm asking you to do to this file, I'll send you a URL that will have a recording of this session so you can back and watch it. We'll talk about that in a moment. So, but as a best practice, doing all of this sort of file swapping, share pod opening and closing stuff is a disorganized way to go. It's great for collaborations. It's great for office hours. It's great for when you and I are going to make our plans to rule the known universe or steal my computer. But when you're actually doing a class, you want to have a much more organized, metered approach to the process. And you want to do some things like account for the fact that I can't keep you awake by looking at your eyes to see if you're looking drowsy while we're talking. I can't do that in this session. I can turn on my webcam and try and do something goofy enough to interest you. But really what I need to do is break the material up so that I'm presenting a little bit of information and then I'm asking you to synthesize that information. If I do that and I have placed the expectation that you will participate, then you're going to be much more likely to actually continue to participate. And I am just as guilty as anyone else of, during a 2-hour meeting, getting up and leaving between minutes 1 and 119. So it happens, and you know, I mean, you've been there. So the thing is, instead of just sort of moving pods around and sort of treating it like you treat a class, we offer this concept called layouts, which allows you to pre-configure your pods, and they give you the ability to move through a session in an organized, structured way. So let me show you what I mean. This is the intro. In fact, for the intro, I'll probably have something like this. Your mic is on. Thank you. For the intro, I might have something like this. I'm a little bit of an egotist, so. Now, depending on the class, I might even give camera access to the individuals. I might not. Depends on how long in the class we've been. So here I am saying, everybody, hey, everybody sit down. We're going to have a great class today. Chat. I might have a file share pod that has files that I'll want you to download. Maybe they're the syllabus. Maybe they're the homework for the week or whatever. You know, sort of think about what you want to do in a class, what you would do in a normal class. But then when it's actually time to start the class, instead of coming over and doing all of this stuff live, you just want to be able to click and jump to that layout. And so that's what a layout is. It's basically just a configuration of pods. But because it's a configuration of pods, and because you have the little buttons over here, and you can see what those buttons mean, you can do something like this. I'm going to create a new layout. It'll be a blank layout. I'm going to polls. And where did my polls layout go? Blank layout. I don't know if my system is having trouble or what. Try it one more time. Create new blank layout, call polls, click OK, and I should see a button over there for my new polls layout. But I'm not seeing it. Well, without actually creating that, let me just explain. I would create that, and in fact, I would create a layout for each section of the class that I want. And then I could either name it Intro, or I'm going to name it Intro 5, Present 10, and that gives me the amount of time I feel like I should spend on each of those sections of the class. And what that does is that helps me to keep the class on track, to make sure that if I've been speaking for 10 minutes, that maybe it's time to, it's time to do something different to keep the audience interested. Now, the final thing that I just want to say, or final thing with respect to that, is the other thing that allows me to do, well, there's my polls layout. Wow. Where's Lisa? Lisa, are you here? Yes. There's something going on here at Case. It's this is the complaint that we were having. Yeah. So I'm seeing this here. So, okay. All right. And look, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or blames. We're doing a tech support issue at Case. This is happening. So anyway, these layouts allow me to use that best practice of keeping things on track. A couple of other things that I want to point out. When you're working in Connect, not only can you do a live presentation, but I talked about the concept of a portal. The concept of a portal is more than just, it's a web place to go get things. But I'm going to go all the way back to my intro. And I'm going to put a couple of things in here. I'm going to put my email address in the chat pod. I'm going to upload a file. And I'll just grab something from my content here, this case file here. This meeting is being recorded. I've chosen record meeting. What's happening on the back end is that the server is capturing what I do, but it's not just capturing a movie of what I do. When you watch this movie or this recording, you can pause the recording, and from it, you can actually download that file. You can also click on this, which is a hot link now, and will be a hot link in the recording. So more than just a recording of, a linear recording, it's actually a replay of what happened, which gives you the flexibility of turning this into a portal. And a lot of the e-learning situations that I'm in, the instructor will record the class and then stop the recording, and then start the recording for about 20 seconds and then stop the recording, and just send out that second recording as the portal for all of the classes or the assets that go into the class. In a PD development situation, people will do the same thing, where they'll actually use Share My Screen. They'll open up the Connect Room, because when you're sharing your screen, you can actually bring the Connect Room forward and do a tour of everything here, record that, and then it's a self-teaching set of files that you can use, because you can download from this files panel anything that you allow someone to download. So instead of just thinking of Connect as a tool for doing presentations, it can be a collaboration tool. I can give people access to the webcam. It can be a tool for presenting, because I can do the presentation. It can be a lecture capture tool, because it can do the recordings. It can be all of those things, and it can be all of those things in a single meeting. And to keep yourself on track in the single meeting, you can use this concept of layouts to help you move in a structured way through the meeting, so that your students don't either get bored and walk away, or get confused and also, I guess, walk away. So if you're interested in Connect, talk to Kirsten. Where's Kirsten? Or Kristen? talk to Wendy. Wendy will put you in the right direction because. Well, because Case has the ability to let you use Connect. So start experimenting with it, and what I think you'll find is that it's going to save you a ton of time, and it's a pretty cool thing to use.